Everyone please sit down. Welcome back everyone. Without further delay, let us commence our third and concluding lecture session. I kindly invite Professor Shamvit Panigrahi once again to the stage to preside over the final session.
So thank you very much, and I'll be glad to invite to the stage Dr. Asijit Datta, who is the last plenary speaker of this session, and I'm sure we are looking forward to an interesting talk. Thank you very much.
Hello everyone. Since our bellies are full, you can go back to sleep. I'll try to make you fall asleep with my utmost capacity. Okay, so without wasting any of your time, I'll be speaking. I'll be trying to cover a little bit of posthumanism, and then from there I'll try to shift to what it says about environment. From there I'll talk a little bit about folk, F-O-L-K, folk tales, folk time, and then I'll try to connect folk time with Buddhism. So my topic today is posthumanism and Buddhism, and I'm trying to save nature with the help of Buddhism, and if it's possible at all, we'll try to see if it's possible at all. So bear with me maybe for the next 30 minutes or so. So what is posthumanism to begin with? It's a reaction against the long-standing Western notion of humanism, which puts the species of humans at the center. And I think the previous three speakers have also talked about it, how we are so species-oriented. And I think something very funny happened when Panigrahi sir was talking about species. I misheard it as species. So we humans are both, there's a kind of speciesism, and also there's a kind of spaceism, because we try to occupy all kinds of spaces. So there's a kind of funny way it probably interacts with each other, species and spaces. So that's what posthumanism critiques technically. And it also critiques how we as humans invade the life of nature and the companion species. And it seeks to repair, and this is also my focus, it tries to repair the excesses committed by us in the name of technology and progress, which has also given rise to the current geological epoch termed the Anthropocene. And this term has been repeated since morning so many times, right? The Anthropocene term, which is also we are facing, I don't know how many of you know, that we are facing the 6th mass extinction, right? And of course, it tries to talk about the entanglement, the interrelationship, the interkingdoms of humans, animals, and other non-human things like the bacteria, and even robots. I'll just begin with something very interesting. I don't know how many of you know about something called the cleaner fish. Hardly any of us know about it, right? A cleaner fish is a type of species, and what it does, it enters the mouth of its predator. Okay, imagine a shark. a shark would eat a cleaner fish, but a cleaner fish or doctor fish, it's also known as a doctor fish, what it does, it enters the mouth of the predator and it picks up the dirt from the mouth of the predator. Okay? So it cleans the mouth of the predator and the predator keeps its mouth open till the cleaning is done. But that dirt, filth, is also food for the cleaner fish. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? It's a perfect kind of symbiosis where one is dependent on the other and none of them are harmed in that way. We humans do not know this. We humans know how to exploit rather than coexist. Very interestingly, if I immediately shift from the cleaner fish to what Masahiro Mori in his fantastic book, The Buddha and the Robot, would say. The entire purpose of the book, Buddha and the Robot, written in 1981, is to prove, Masahiro is a robotic engineer, and he tries to prove that if Buddha, if the notion of Buddha being or Buddhahood is in all things living and non-living, since Buddha would say even a rock would have Buddha nature, so technically speaking, Masahiro would say that even a robot has Buddha nature. Even a machine. Right now, my voice is reaching to the last, I don't know, bench, who are not listening to me, that's fine. But that it is reaching, what is this voice? Is this a biological voice? Is it a mechanical voice? Is it a biomechanical voice? Or is it nothing? What is it? Because it's reaching there with the help of the mic. What kind of manipulated voice is reaching you is itself the question that needs to be asked, right? Because it's a kind of coming together of both the human and the machine. Right now, my voice, which leaves my body through my mouth, becomes both human and mechanical, right? I might be entirely human. At the same time, if I lose my hand someday, God forbid, and if I have a mechanical arm, will I be a human or will I be a machine? So posthumanism questions the formation of these binaries. Oh, he's a human. Oh, that's a machine, right? So we are breaking away from these. Now, let's talk about a little bit about let's say the Anthropocene and folk. So we can continue in the Anthropocene, at least according to me, with the help of two ways. There are predominantly two vital ways to continue or remain, if you want to remain, by the way. Again, there are geologists, there are theorists who would say the entire conference is just bogus because we are dying. We are not going to survive, I'm sorry. And there are theorists like Claire Colebrook who would say that the only authentic way to live right now is to imagine your own extinction. And to imagine what kind of impressions we as a species would be living on Earth for a future geologist, we don't know, maybe from Mars, maybe from, I don't know, from some distant universe, would come and explore, be the colonist, be like a colonialist, would come and explore Earth and find, oh my God, what kind of species were they? They killed themselves, you know? Because humans are one of the very few species, also like, let's say, coronavirus. What did the virus do when it entered our body? It tried to colonize all the organs and slowly eat up and then leave the body, turning you into whatever, maybe. So once, you know, I think all of us have been touched by the virus. All of us. So right now, what kind of purity do we have as bodies which has been infected by a virus which came from dead animals in Wuhan, China? I don't know whose virus has entered whose body. Shubhendu would be much more equipped with that because he's dealing with medical humanities. But then, I don't know. That is perhaps the question medical humanities is also asking, you know, what is the authentic body anymore? There is nothing. There is no authentic body. If there is no authentic body, what are we preserving? This talk of nature and women and all that, what is the authentic gender, authentic body, authentic machine doesn't exist anymore. So So, if that is the truth, if all bodies have been corrupted, by the way, how many of you know how pregnancy was possible? I doubt many of us know this. Pregnancy was possible, of course, not by sex. That is, we know that. I'm sorry. Pregnancy in the earliest human beings was possible through a bacterial infection of the placenta. Can you imagine? A bacterial infection of the placenta made the placental mammal reproduce. So without bacteria, there would have been no conference and no speakers and no you getting bored. So look at the strange side of it, right? The bacterial infection. Now, so if you ask me, we have two ways to survive: in presence and in absence. In presence, the human animals extend their stay on the earth either through post-human interrelations and assemblages or transhumanist uploading of consciousness into machine brains. There's also this kind of research, I don't know again how many of you know this, that there are scientists like Nick Bostrom in Oxford and other people, but Nick Bostrom is a theorist. There are other scientists who are really trying to upload your consciousness into a chip. Do you know this? Right now, as we speak, research is going on in Arizona where bodies can be frozen for $50,000 so that it can be reanimated at a future time. For example, you have cancer stage 4 and or any of the terminal diseases and you're going to die. And you think that, okay, I'll die, I'm sorry, but I'm rich. Maybe before going to Switzerland for euthanasia, which is, again, I don't know how many of you know, it's legal, and it's very expensive. You can face the mountains and kill yourself. So that's euthanasia. But then you can preserve your body for $50,000 in a center in Arizona. It's called the Alcor Foundation. You can do research on that, ALCOR, Alcor Foundation, where the entire purpose is they'll cut your head off, they'll preserve your head separately and the body in polyvinyl alcohol in minus some degree centigrade in a separate box. But the entire purpose of the foundation is that they're looking at a future time when there will be scope and technology to revive the body, to bring back the body with the same memory. Now you can ask the dangerous question, can memory survive without context? That's a dangerous question. So if I have the same memory of my friends, of my relatives, of my mom and dad, and if I'm awake 100 years later, in the absence of the context, will I make sense? Will my body make sense? Will the body make sense in the absence of an environment? Is a huge question that posthumanism is trying to fight or clash against. Because on the one hand, you have this kind of, let's survive together, be together. That's the purpose of the conference as well, right? One environment, one species, multiple species, but nevertheless, one. We are all one. That's why Rosie Bradatti would say, we are all in this together, but we are not one and the same. For example, let's go back to Professor Acharyo's paper. He talked about the indigenous population, right? But think about it. When the climate crisis happens, it will kill everyone, affect everyone. The Brahmin Babu sitting in Delhi, and the indigenous population living in the forest. It will kill everyone. So we are in this together. But is the Brahmin and the Adivasi the same thing? No. So Rosie Bradatti would say, we are all in this together, but we are not one and the same. We all have our individual struggle, right? So on the one hand, you have posthumanism coming together. On the other hand, you have transhumanism, which talks about this machinic consciousness and uploading of brain, all that. So let's imagine this entire point and think about how we can escape into folk time, into a time, very recently there's a brilliant book by Chandan Gowda. You should read this book. It's called Another India. Fantastic book. And what he does in the book, he records folk narratives, he translates folk narratives from Kannada. Okay, we all know Kannada, the Kannada language, the interiors of Karnataka. And they're fascinating, absolutely fascinating. How many of us believe in God? Can you raise your hand, please? How many of us believe in? Don't be ashamed. And people are so ashamed to raise their hands. Okay, you believe in God. Okay, there's so many. Maybe 80%, 85% believes in God, and the rest 10% not listening. That's fine. So let's say 95% believe in God. Interesting is the point that we believe in God in a way that it is in a kind of reverential manner, right? We look up. How many times do we, while praying, look down? Oh, God. Oh, God. Or we don't even do, oh, God. Let's face each other. God, oh, you. We don't do that, right? You'll be shocked to know in almost all tribal customs, and that's what he writes in Another India, he records these events that are fantastic, where one of the rituals, you know what one of the rituals is? One of the rituals is, ritually these villagers would meet this deity in the temple and rub chili over the body of the deity. And the deity would start yelling, what are you doing? My body is burning. And the villagers would say, what did you do for us for the entire year? What were you doing? When people were dying due to the absence of rain, there are no crops. Landlords are torturing us. What were you doing as a god? And God, as a response, he would say something very beautiful. He would say, are you the only believer? I was there in another village. I was saving them. And then there's a dialogue. So God is not someone who is right, as a friend, as a comrade, to use a Marxist term. And that's why folks are so important, because it imagines a time and gives us a framework, and also, I think, provides us with a kind of methodology for us to imagine a coexistence which is not based on binary up and down or binarized system, right? Imagine another folk tale which is so empowering, I imagine, where two clans are clashing, okay? And the god of one clan says, I will not move 1 inch till you bring my sister from the other clan. And how relationship between clans are established based on relationship between gods. So gods are not someone who exist, let's say, in a kind of detached manner, but in a kind of embracing manner, all-encompassing manner. So imagine this. So I'll just say what is important for us is to find a ground, geographical ground, political and ethnographic, and the local perspective from which one alleviates the crisis, solves the crisis. It is also equally necessary to explore the surrounding habitat, not just neighborhood. I mean, people who study in this college, how many of you can really tell me about the flora and fauna of the surrounding? Maybe 1% of the entire crowd, or maybe not even 1%. What kind of flowers grow out here? What kind of birds sing in the morning? We are so unaware of it. And because of this unawareness, because we are also unaware when it is absent. To know that the birds are not singing, you have to know the birds that were singing. What is the poem by Mahmoud Darwish, that famous poem, that is it by Mahmoud Darwish, that in order to listen to the birds singing, the war planes must stop. Because you can't hear the birds because the war planes are up there in the sky. It's interesting. So if you look at this, perhaps a way out of this imminent ending that we are ending is to be excavated from mythologies, spiritual dimensions, and speculative fabulations. We've all heard the term fables, right? Fables, fairy tales, fables. Donna Haraway uses a term called fabulation. And fabulation would mean telling of stories. Right now, I'm telling you a story about a Kannad tribe practicing this ritual. That's a story I'm telling you. You will tell the story to your relative, to your friend, and that's how folk tales spread, right? Now, that's why folk tales do not have time. You can never say that this folk belongs to this period, because the moment you reach that period, you would find that that folk belongs to some other period, right? How many of you know the story of Sleeping Beauty? How many of you know the story of Sleeping Beauty? 2, seriously? The fairy tale, Sleeping Beauty, right? Who falls asleep. Okay, any idea when it was written? One of the versions of Sleeping Beauty happens to be in Italy. It's by Giambattista Bastille in mid-1600s. And you'll be shocked to know the story. It's not the kiss of the prince that saves the Sleeping Beauty. The Sleeping Beauty gets raped in her sleep. No, she gets raped in her sleep. And she gives birth to twins, sun and moon, in her sleep. It's fantastic if you go deep into folk tales, fairy tales, whatever you call them, right? So time gets destroyed in folk. Interesting. Now, if you look at folk, interestingly, if you look at folk, you will find something which let's say, to borrow the phrase from Elizabeth Kitzglew and Bob Thompson, these folk tales, these fables, break down the movement of physical linear time into relative, multiple, and diverse, and gives rise to anthropologies of time. More than reflections of a community's religious sentiments, they need to be seen as evidences of ecological time, of gods acting as mediators between humans and their environment. This atemporal, by the way, atemporal means time that doesn't move in a linear fashion, but atemporal does not mean ahistorical. Like there's a problem, do not think that folktales do not have history. What folktales can do, they can destroy time, they can destroy the hierarchy of time between past, present, and future. They can break it down, because right now this folk tomorrow can become something else, right? That's the fluid nature of folktales, right? So what I'm doing in my research, let's say, I'm using this folk time, this atemporal time, as an opposition to the entropy time. Entropy means a kind of destroying time that is destroying the ecology of the Anthropocene. Time stops when interacting with characters inside fantasy tales. We are inside God time, or embodied timelessness. Deep down these texts, time stops being symbolic, hegemonic, and objective, and transforms into dislocated natural time. What what Simpson would call counter-chronactic time, and plastic time, time outside time, slow time, time as human experience. We are constantly becoming within time, within unbounded temporalities where past, present, and futures bleed into each other. The act of folk-telling, myth-weaving, fantasy writing, I propose, gives birth to a non-human time. And please do understand, right? Whenever I say, oh, there is less time. How much time do I have for this address? 1 hour, 45 minutes? What are these times? Do these times exist for a fox, for a cockroach, for I don't know, for any kind of animals or bacteria or virus? These times are stupid locators. Space, cosmic, imagine some, in the history of the universe, this human time is nothing, right? Imagine within human time we think of, oh, he was alive for 100 years, and this has been going on for so long, and under tyranny and all, in the entire gamut of history, oeuvre of history, Hitler doesn't have space. In the entire gamut of history, the invention of air condition doesn't have a space. What has space is human beings as one continuous continuum. Human beings as one elongated existence, that to which came and which vanished, right? We don't exist. Now I come to the last, the entire proposition of my paper, which is to contribute to environmental humanities, post-humanities, in the intersection of Buddhist philosophy. And I'll try to understand time in Buddhist philosophy, and how, if you look at Buddhism, and they are slowly, this is not me entirely, because, someone like Devashish Banerjee, someone like Francesca Ferrando, they talk of these spiritual dimensions. For example, what do we say in Hindu mythology? Don't we say that Tattvamasi? Tat tvam asi. What does it mean? That thou art. That. Please, I'm not proposing you. I'm not asking you, and neither am I. I'm not a believer. When I asked who all believe in God, I didn't raise my hand. I don't. But if I look at text, if God too is a text, everything is a text technically, and God definitely is a text because you believe in God. When you say you believe in God, you believe what is written about God, not God, right? Even if you believe in Allah, which doesn't have a form, a structure, Allah has nothing, and yet you believe in what's written in the Quran, let's say, well, Allah comes through Muhammad, right? Now, what I'm trying to say is, if you believe in these texts which are godly, which is equivalent to you believing in God, what are you believing in technically? What I'm proposing is, we can use these very powerful literature in order to understand what has happened, and how, and I'm not indulging in nostalgia, oh, things were so beautiful, how our parents say, this generation, what will happen to you, things were so good when we were younger, and the same thing was said to them when they were young, oh, you generation. So every generation as if has degraded, right? So what I'm trying to say here is how beautifully we can use the power of these texts which talk of this coming together, fusion of all kinds of gods and humans and animals, and use them to understand, to let's say, charge our entropic time, charge our, deeply nasty understanding of nature, exploitation of nature, and recharge, refuel, so that the Brazilian government, when the rainforests were burning, didn't have to hide the data. The Bolsonaro, the president of Brazil, hid the data when the forest was burning and how many animals were killed. If we have the awareness of this, things would be much more, let's say, peaceful in relative terms. So what I'm trying to do through Buddhism is, the entire purpose of Buddhism, the entire mantra of Buddhism is to reach shunyata. How many of you know? Of course, most of you know this. Shunyata, the life is, I'm not going into life is suffering and all that. I'm interested in that Buddha talks about destruction of time. Buddha talks about this kind of shunyata and a kind of coexistence of things. And I'll talk about it a little bit and end in maybe next 10 minutes. Just be with me for the next 10 minutes. The question we need to ask at the very beginning of our understanding of posthumanism as a discourse and a way of life is, if we have an environment-oriented, interspecies-dependent posthuman, what has been the contribution of mythology, spiritualism, religion in shaping up that non-dualistic universe? And please try to understand this non-duality. Mind, body, God, human, man, woman, etc. This non-dual, we have to reach that non-dual state. Now, what Buddhism would do, and what I am doing through Buddhism, is that I would like to approach posthumanism via the negative of Buddhist shunyata. So if shunyata is something where all beings go to, by the way, even if you're meditating in Buddhism, and the nirvana in Buddhism is actually a realization of shunyata, is a realization of emptiness. You would try this at home, by the way, I'm sure everyone. How many of you have tried meditating? Many? I'm sure. Okay. What will happen the moment you begin meditation is the entire world will come to disturb you. You will remember the smallest and the stupidest detail the moment you close your eyes. Right? Now, exactly why Buddhists say, or the Buddha says, meditation in the proper sense of the term is a realization of emptiness, of nothingness. And the only true Buddha will be able to imagine and navigate and be in that position where nothing exists. Nothing exists means both nothing as a kind of there is nothing, and both nothingness as a kind of material entity, a kind of nothing. So there's a concept in Buddhism which is called pratitya samutpada. Pratitya samutpada of the Buddhists refers to the dependent origination of things. This is very interesting, okay? That all things are dependent on one another. It is the law of causality, conditionality, and the interdependence of all existence. For example, Pratitya Samutpada is the concept of dependent arising. That one thing arose because another thing was there. And one thing could only arise because of the help of the other thing, which also arose because of the help of the other thing, which also arose because of the help of the other thing, right? For example, this frame of APJ Abdul Kalam, what is holding the frame? What is the frame made of? What is the wood? What is the tree? Which is the forest? You go back and back and back, and then you realize the frame in itself doesn't exist. The frame is as good as the tree. And then there is this figure of a man whose picture was taken. We don't know, none of us know where the picture was taken. But does it mean that the picture doesn't exist? I think what Buddha is trying to say, I mean, I explained it in a very bad manner, but what Buddha is trying to say is that there is a kind of entanglement in all things that exist. That's the basic fundamental concept of Pratitya Samutpada, right? So what he says is that Pratitya Samutpada is the, and he calls it, so is the concept of dependent arising and impermanence of things. Now, technically, if one is dependent on the other, therefore, everything is impermanent. Nothing is permanent, because in order to be permanent, you need to be independent. And you're not independent. Please don't think that we human beings are independent. That's the biggest mistake ever, right? And in Buddhist terms, it's known as anicca, A-N-I-C-C-A, anicca. Due to this interdependence, nothing except nirvana has independence. That's why the goal of Buddhism is to reach nirvana, shunyata. Only nirvana is a state where nothing exists, and it's an independent state. Now, Peter Abelson writes, thus, for anything to be empirically real, visually, experientially, it must be spatial, temporal, and causal. Yet, space, time, and causality cannot be proven to be empirically real themselves. And Pratitya Samutpada is directly connected to and a synonym of shunyata, because to be caused by everything else is to be empty of self-causation. It's technically very easy. If you're caused by something else, you didn't cause yourself. Imagine you as a product caused by your parents' products caused by some other parents. It goes on and on and on. And yet, if you study evolution, you would find that our bones are made of stardust. How many of you know this? Our bones are made of stardust. That stars and the Big Bang and everything happened, and stars collided with stars, and microorganism was formed, and from that microorganism, organism was formed, and from there we, us, our bones, our structure, our flesh has stars inside it. We are cosmic dust. So the moment we are looking up there to look at the stars, we're looking at our parents in a very stupid manner. That they are our real forefathers, because stars collided and broke down and formed us humans, right? So the essential essence of all things and beings is empty, since to be caused by others is to lack self-causation, to have emptiness behind and beyond. Now, it's interesting that all Buddhist schools dissolve hierarchy between species. This is interesting. This is how I reach posthumanism. They are not based on a point of reference like Tattvamasi of Hinduism or the Christian idea of salvation or heaven, but an emptiness that precedes, exceeds, and follows us. I find the principle of transmigration liberating. Human and animal live both as perceived and as punishments and consequences of karmic vibrations. However, the sheer possibility of humans metamorphosing into animals in the next lives, even if it suggests crimes in their past lives, exhibits a world of kinship and non-anthropomorphic entanglements. The Buddhists believe that kindness for others opens doors that are non-dual. Though altruism is a dominating principle for all religions, Buddhism's idea of care and concern revolves around the essentially unoccupied core of all living beings. I would like to suggest that compassion for human and non-human animals on the one hand, and the practice of renunciation on the other, brings us a world of detached attachment or empathetic indifference. We honor and we uphold the lives of others, marginal and non-sentient, or rock even, by not encroaching and collaborating with them when they are falling towards extinction. Just to end my talk, imagine he talks something about the unborn, okay? Unborn, okay? So for Buddhism, shunyata could also actively operate as a synonym for the unborn. What is unborn? Or the Buddha mind. For Buddhism, for the Buddha, everybody has inside them a Buddha mind, or everybody is impregnate with Tathagata Garbha. Okay, he calls it Tathagata Garbha. We all have the Tathagata Garbha inside us, the power to become the Buddha. So thus shunyata could also actively operate as a synonym for the unborn or the Buddha mind, which exists beyond the duality of life and death. The unborn as absence is an origin we return to, and yet something we have never left. So it's beautiful, right? That according to Buddhist philosophy, we come from the unborn and return to the unborn. And what is the unborn? The unborn is the Buddha mind, right? And only through meditation you can access the unborn. And if you reach the unborn, you have reached nirvana. And you reach the unborn because within yourself you have the Tathagata Garbha. You're pregnant with the Buddha mind, but you can only reach the Buddha mind through meditation, through renunciation, through detachment, right? And all that is there. So it's interesting how in Pali canon, Pali language, Pali canon, in one of the suttas, one of the suttas, it's called the Udana collection of suttas. This is how unborn is defined. There is, O monks, an unborn, an unbecome, an unmade, an unconditioned. If, O monks, there were not here this unborn, there would not here be an escape from the born, the become, the made, the conditioned. So you escape the born stage of karma to reach the unborn stage of absence. I would like to propose that the post-human and pre-human unborn is an experience of timelessness, of unworlding and unwording. W-O-R-D. We all know, right? For the Buddhists, language is a veil which hides the truth. We all know that we have tried to tell our parents, our friends, our lovers, what is really wrong with us, and we could not. We could not because language is an obstruction. If I take the help of psychoanalysis, language is lack. The more we speak, the more we go away from what we want to speak. Therefore, in Bengali, we have this thing, right? Our friend asks, "Ki hoyeche?" And the entire reply is "Kichu na," right? The moment we say "Kichu na," or in English we say "nothing," the nothing is a very loaded word. Kichuna means something is definitely wrong, right? And this is how I end my paper, is that we must reimagine a re-entry into the unborn Buddha mind, into Tathagata Garbha, the creative Buddha womb. It is a world of emaciation, of starvation, where the anorexic soul survives by eating nothingness. Buddhist understanding of the pre-human and the post-human unborn, an experience of timelessness, So the unborn transcends duality and is both an entombed and enwombed state, the embryonic and the destroyed. As immanent generative force, the unborn self possesses the Tathagata Garbha, or the Buddhist womb, the great emptiness or shunyata. The unborn transcends duality, and in the age of the Anthropocene, it must be read as a cancellation of the transhumanist fascination with life and its extension. That, the entire thing about robot and robot brains and all that. Rather than geopolitical extinction, we should turn our focus into another kind of death, the end of self and its linkages. So in a very strange manner, I am talking about death and Buddhism, and we are also trying to decolonize nature so that the tribes can survive, so that ecology can survive. But I'm also talking about death. But this kind of death is linked with liberation rather than exploitation. And the last part is, it is a negative approach. I'm giving you a negative approach, one that is non-nihilistic. It's not pessimistic. I'm giving you nihilism based on optimism, right? So that carries post-humanist echoes of a Buddhist posthumous selflessness, of an absence of a transhumanist self. Therefore, the Buddhist Shunyata alludes to a post-human environment where everything is subsumed and contracted into a non-dual, empty no-thingness. We are all interrelated, interlinked, inter-race on this planet in a post-humanist way, since we are all part of that spaceless Shunyata. Thank you so much for the patience and not sleeping off.
Thank you so much, Dr. Archijit. And now I will invite questions from the students and faculty, if there are questions. Please.
Yeah, it's fine. Yes, thank you for the question.
Sir, you said that we are all actually prepared by other people. So there is a connection that we are actually kind of relational, we might say. I'm trying to understand, is there a similarity between this sort of thinking and the idea how Shashur thought of language as to be very much relational, as they cannot work on its own. The words are very much connected with each other. Language is connected. So is that?
In order to understand language, we have to understand human beings. Why do we need language? We need language to communicate, okay? But language is also at the basis of all kinds of destruction. You know, the colonizers came to our world and the Bible and all, we know about that. I'm not going to that. But I think what is more important, and what Saussure of course does not cover, and was not his intention to cover, is that we are not related to each other as human beings. I think what posthumanism is saying, that we are related in a much more biological manner than ever was understood by any of the theorists. But at the same time, this was the foundational principle of civilization, of the earliest civilizations, that in order to exist, you cannot exploit and snatch away from the inferior what you need. If you take something, you give something. That's why, in ancient societies, in shamanic tribes, you have the animals so much, right? If you read Ted Hughes' poems, if you read something like The Fox, Ted Hughes' Fox are brilliant, right? Where Ted Hughes can't write for the longest time. He's looking at the blank page and he's have a pen in his hand. Suddenly what happens, it's midnight and he gets the smell of a fox. And the fox is outside, it's snow, and there are bare branches, and the fox's body and nose, it hits the branch, and the smell comes into the poet's nose, and the poem is gone. Poem is done. The poem is written. The poem is only written because the fox participates in the poem. So it is a kind of thing, it's kind of language where the animal is not secluded. It's not the Christianic Abrahamic language where God tells you, it depends on Adam to give, language to the, Adam is the one naming things. Adam is Logos. Adam is the one with the power of the Logos. He says, you are, you're a dog. You're a goat, you're a lion. Adam has the power, but posthumanism would say, no one has the power. Power, if at all, is distributed, it is broken down, it's decentralized. And as much as a bacteria has power, it is the same power that a robot has. So don't imagine that a robot, it's a world where robots don't have a role to play. Of course they do. I remember one of the seminars I went to in Delhi University. It was a disability seminar. It was my first time ever. And I listened to this amazing professor. His name is David Mitchell. And he spoke fantastically on disability studies. I couldn't believe when I saw him coming down that he was paraplegic and nothing worked from down here. And the entire point was he was living the happiest life with the help of a machine, the control of which he had in his hands. Now I cannot say David Mitchell is not entirely human. At the same time, I cannot say he's not entirely machine. It's a kind of coming together of the human and the machine. And that's what existence is all about, I guess.
A sort of coexistence.
It is.
A transhumanist coexistence.
It is
in this
coexistence, yes. There is nothing called exclusivity. There is nothing called segregation. There is nothing called division. If you divide, you die.
So can we process this idea of Shunyata into solving the crises of, let's say, social justice issues such as discrimination? So I can remember one part of Lewis Carroll's Through the Looking Glass. There was a section that Alice was in the middle of a jungle and there was a fawn with her, and the forest was of forgetfulness, the forest of forgetfulness.
Yes.
So in that area, they were working together and they couldn't really remember anything and they were completely fine with each other. They were coexisting. And the moment they crossed that forest, what happened that they kind of remembered and the fawn went away and children Alice, who was not very much, I will let you decipher that. She was actually astounded, like what happened? Is that the idea of Shunyata here?
It's very interesting that you've raised Alice here, because the first thing Alice says when she meets the fawn is, oh my God, I don't remember my name. Who am I? Alice there is without identity. And it's the fawn who knows who the fawn is, but Alice doesn't know who Alice is. So therefore, the idea of human and animal, or human and non-human animals, itself becomes a question there. You know, is it enough to be a human and not know that you are a human? Or what it is to be a human at all? I think we have reached a stage, I don't know your name, I'm sorry, that's in a way good that I don't know your name. I think we have reached a stage where this question has to be asked over and over and over again, that what a human is itself. That we too, you know, right, we are also a definition. We're stuck inside a definition. So if you say how we can solve the crisis of environmental injustice, of social injustice, of discrimination through Shunyata, I think it can show us the way, if you believe in this, it can show us the way of equality. It can show us the way that if we are all ending up in the Shunyata, and if we all have the Tathagata Garbha inside us, both the robot, as Mashiko Mori would say, and the bacteria and the human, if all of us have the Tathagata Garbha, then we have to respect each other's unborn Buddha mind. If we are, you know, the entire point of discrimination is based on the simple fact, I have and you don't. Right from Brahmanism to, you know, someone who lives down to Ambani, I'm sorry. The entire point of discrimination is I have something which you don't. So if everyone has the Buddha mind, then everyone is equally rich and everyone is equally poor. Everyone is hungry and everyone is full. We can try, I guess. Yeah.
Sir, I have another question. This is from Francisco Fernandez's book, Philosophical Posthumanism. You said that we are trying to go for a non-dualistic approach. And I remembered that I have read, and I've marked it actually, that Francisco Fernando, in her videos as well as in her books, she said that she doesn't like that word non-dualism, because the idea is that it's sort of, let's say, it's a reductive idea, that it's actually saying that the dualism are not there. Okay, I'm actually quoting her. 1 second, sir. In tune with constructive approach, posthumanism is aware of the fact that such dualistic presumptions cannot be easily dismissed. That's the point.
That's what she says. Such assumptions cannot be dismissed. So the dualism is there, but posthumanism is going towards a non-dual approach. He's trying to be non-dual. I know about her because she was the first one I interviewed. Ever, yes. So that's what, when we talked through emails, through interviews, she stressed on this part, and that's why she has stopped eating meat. Though I preach this, I can't stop eating meat. Fernando is that, yeah. She stopped eating meat because she thinks that if everything is one, you can't kill the animal, right? So that's again another topic of discussion. We can't go into that right now, but yes, any other questions?
So one thing, sir.
Okay.
One thing, sir.
Sure.
One more. So is there any difference between the idea of post-dualism and non-dualism?
Post-dualism and non-dualism. Non-dualism means I deny dualism. Post-dualism means I have crossed that post-dual state and gone. I've crossed that non-dual state and gone into a state where dualism doesn't exist.
Right. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you. No other questions, I suppose. Okay. Yes.
So no questions.
There is no duality anymore.
There is
Yes.
no duality anymore. So we have come to the end of the final session.
Hey, you don't clap. You were taking a selfie. I saw. Don't clap. Yes, I'm sorry. I'm kidding. Yes. Clap.
Okay, so thank you, and we had wonderful 2 sessions, very enlightening and very enriching experience all of us had. So I'd like to thank all of you
Yes.
for
thank you
having
so
a
much.
wonderful participation.
And thank you the organizers. Special thanks to the organizers. Yes. It was a
Kudos
beautiful
to the
conference,
organizers.
wonderful food, lovely audience. I know forced, but yes, lovely audience. Thank you so much.
you. I think now they have.
Gratitude, sir, for the illuminating session. I kindly ask all paper presenters be ready for the paper presentation segment, chaired by Mr. Shubhendu Ghatak, instructor and PhD scholar of University of Florida. To introduce him, I would like to welcome Ms. Antara Singha Mahapatra, PhD scholar of Midnapore City College.
I would like to request Mr. Shubhendu Ghatak to come on stage to chair the paper presentation session. Mr. Shubhendu Ghatak is former assistant professor at JK College, Purulia. He is currently a PhD candidate in English at the University of Florida, exploring the conjunctures of medical and cultural narratives of malaria in South Asia. He has received fellowships from the Consortium for History of Science, Technology and Medicine and American Institute of India Studies. He has published or has forthcoming works in Volapte, Synopsis and Journal of the History of Medicine and Allied Sciences. I would like to welcome sir on stage.
Our first session will be chaired by Mr. Shubhendu Ghatak sir, and the presenters are Akashdeep De, Ayan Dotto, Debashish Shao, Indrajit Ghosh, Kuheli Patro, Navadeep Mondol, Shantanu Chaudhuri, Shiparna Mahapatro.
Thank you so much for that generous introduction. So I would like to invite Akashdeep to come to the stage for the presentation. Each of the presenters will have 10 minutes and we will have time for 2 questions.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Akashdeep De. The title of my paper is Addressing the Economic Consequence of Climate Change, an eco-critical study of Niramadhav Panda's film Kadvi Hawa, produced in 2017. So, the focus of my paper is on the topic that how the lower and lower middle class people are economically devastated and affected by the by the natural calamities. So we all talk about the consequences more about the physical perspectives, from the physical perspectives, that what these natural calamities can do, but much of the time we just neglect the point how it can economically destroy the lower class people, especially the farmers or the other people who basically lives in the village and the closest ones to the nature. So in this film, we are talking about basically on the life of two characters. One is the character is named as Hedu, who is a blind old man who lives in a drought-prone area of Bundelkhand in Uttar Pradesh. And another one is another character who is a Gunu Babu, who is from the coastal area of Odisha, and the area basically is a cyclone prone area, and who is trying to get rid of this particular cyclone prone area, and he wants to shift with his family to Uttar Pradesh to get rid of flood and other cyclone effects. So both of these characters are facing two different, I must say that two opposite situations of nature. The first one, whose name is Hedu, he is just he's just facing the drought, the dryness of the area of Bundelkhand, from which the name of the film has, it is Kadvi Hawa, the dark wind, you can say. So here the area of the village of Hedu has did not face the rain for 15 years. So due to lack of rain, we are getting a scenario of crop failure and farmer suicide in that particular area. Why farmer suicide? Because they takes a loan from different banks and they cannot repay it. But at the same time, we have these characters like Gunu Babu, who works as a loan recovery agent of a bank of Uttar Pradesh, and he has the opportunity to to recover the loan from these kind of farmers who are indebted and cannot repay because of the crop failures. So both of this scenario, so if we look at that, so in this film we are getting a scenario of farmer suicide, one character Ram Saran who is dying, committing suicide, and because he cannot repay the loan. But on the other hand, Gunu Babu is pressurizing, characters like Gunu Babu is pressurizing these characters, these farmers to repay the loan, so that he can earn more and more commission from the bank. Okay, so both of these characters are in opposite situations, and they are depending on each other. They are trying to pressurize each other to get rid of their situations. So if we look about Gunu Babu's situations, if he can earn more commission from the bank, he can take his family to Uttar Pradesh and get rid of the situation of the flood. So in the present century, if we talk about both the places, the coastal region of Odisha, especially the region of Kendrapada and other coastal villages, and as well as if we talk about the scenario of the drought-prone Bundelkhand, both are in same crisis, same economic crisis because of their these opposite situations. So now in this paper, in this film, we will see that Hedu is praising the situation, the environmental situation of the coastal line of Odisha, because they have sufficient rain in their environment. But Hedu Babu is also trying to praise, Hedu Babu is also preferring the situation of Uttar Pradesh, dry Uttar Pradesh, because he wants to get rid of that over rain, extremity of rain, this flood, and the disaster after the flood. So, what I am trying to say in this paper is no one is basically exempted from this kind of situation. Both of these characters are facing economic trouble, and it is such an extreme situation that they cannot deny it, and in different periods they have to follow different kind of life strategies or critical kind of life strategies, such as here we see that both of these characters, Gunu Babu and Hedu, one is indebted and one has provided the loan, or one is the loan recovery agent. They in a certain time they comes closer to each other, and they just signs an unwritten commitment or unwritten situation, they are signing it. So, so that what Hedu is trying to say, that I am giving some clue to you, Gunubabu, and you just get, you cannot pressurize my son, who the character's name is Mukund, who is already indebted very much by the bank. If the Hedu knows that if Gunubabu pressurizes this man, his son Mukund can commit suicide. Okay, so that's why he is just saying, Gunubabu, that I am giving you clue of other farmers who are indebted in his village, and you can get commission from these recoveries, and you must leave, you must exempt my son from this kind of pressurization or to repay the loan. So this is an unwritten bond between them, and that's how they started to develop with each other. So here I must ask that, I must relate that these characters like Gunubabu, who are the loan recovery agents, they are called as the Yamdut in these villages. As all says that if he comes to the village, he takes the life of 2 or 3 people in this scenario in the village. So after all, so finally what the concluding point of this paper, of my paper, is that the direct effect of natural calamities just exploits these farmers and the lower class people of the villages who are connected to the nature the most. And what happens here, that if we look to the reality, that they are the less consumers to the act of climate change, to the scene of climate change, but they have to pay the most, they are the most exploited ones by these natural calamities. So that's all in this paper. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Akshadeep, for that great presentation. We will take the questions at the end. So the next presenter for the day is Oyon Dotto. Please remember your questions. We will have occasion for asking questions at the end.
Welcome everyone. My name is Oyon Dotto, and today I will be presenting a paper titled Nature and Liberty, a literary study of subjugation of droids and Wookiees through the lens of posthumanism and postcolonialism in Solo, a Star Wars story, We Don't Serve Their Kind Here, and Tribe. So Star Wars has always been a very favorite universe of mine for storytelling purposes. So one of my most favorite dialogue or line is from Obi-Wan Kenobi, when he says that only a Sith deals in absolute. So the idea is that Sith is the bad guy here and Jedi are the good guy, and the idea is that the Sith here, Anakin Skywalker, is being wrong and only he is dealing with the absolute. But the point is that the binary, actually what Obi-Wan Kenobi is trying to showcase, he is showcasing the faultiness or futility of binary division. But here is an interesting thing. Even the line that only a Sith deals in absolute is an absolute. So by that line we can, if we investigate this line even further, we can see the whole book, Revenge of the Sith, or the movie, whatever you may prefer. Both are about that Jedis are not the entirely good guys, and this portrays the idea that simply battling against evil does not make one good, but rather there are some other factors to be taken into. So one such example, and I will give many, would be Han Solo in the end of Solo, a Star Wars story. What he did, that he didn't care about what happens to activist droid L3, and he keep on exploiting it, although he was a good guy. Then again, in the case of A New Hope, Luke, what he does, that he was confronted by the bartender Uhar that they don't serve droids, as in robots, and Luke thinks that this is not the time to force the issue of droid rights. The problem is, canonically, even just before the moment of his death, he never really forced the issue of the rights of droids. He just said about it. And then again, there is Senator Leia, who is also another one of quote-unquote good guy. What happens is that she is actually a bit different, and I will argue that much more evil, because she claims that the robots are never to be underestimated. Why? I will explain that a bit further. Okay, and the idea we can understand with Dalai Lama's idea of empathy and compassion. Empathy, as we understand it, is to share others' pain, but the compassion is to share others' pain, and while to try to get rid of that pain, for them to get rid of their suffering. What happened that although these good guys are actually empathetic to their cause, they are not compassionate enough to do anything about it. Even further, another story, another analysis can be put as Adam Cranch argues. Cranch argues that in democracy there are some decisions, although is objectively right for the minority, but might not be done easily because of the fear of losing the popularity. That's the same case that was argued by the Jedis. They said that although there is slavery and they knew the slavery was bad, they couldn't do anything about it because, well, that's not how democracy works, and they made a lot of excuses about it. In a similar style, that we can see that these are the main thing. One is political indifference, and another is the simply lack of compassion. And if we talk about the Wookiees here, Wookiees in the Star Wars universe are a tribal being, animal, like some sort of an animal. They use a different language, and they look like sort of like bears, and they're actually very much cute, but not the point. The word family in Wookiee language, Kashyyyk, is almost indifferentiable from the word family. So the word tribe and family is almost indifferentiable, and the idea of their culture can be portrayed that before going to the war, they take help from their trees, the Roshi trees, and Roshi trees tells them to connect with the animals, to talk with them, to make a plan in order to defeat the colonizers, galactic empire. And another focus we can do on the Wookiees is that in the Bad Batch season 2 episode 6 Tribe, what happens in Tribe in Tribe happens that in Tribe, what happens is that in Tribe there is force. The force is within everyone, and the force is actually helps the young Jedi Ganji to talk with the animals to defeat the colonizers. And if we go further, there is this idea of sentience that we'll talk about right now. What is sentience? Sentience is simply the capability of failing, the capability of sensing, and that's the important thing, because the idea of sentience has been politicized in order to justify others' exploitation. So such as, I can give an example in the popular rhetoric of mansplaining, woman has been considered as fillers, so therefore they are less sentient, and men, opposing to men, they are rather leaders and much more problem solver sort of people. And this creates a man-made hierarchy. This creates a problem, and the issue of sentience is being used against the Wookiees as the Empire classified them as non-sentient, and to push them as slave labor. And then there is a shift. Now I'm going to take us to talk about robots. But the word robots come from the word robota, that means to serve a slave, and the whole idea of robots, even in by Asimov's definition, is to talk about it in a way that controls the robots, and is everything should be done in an anthropocentric manner. And what happens is that there are many anti-robot propaganda right now. We will understand that AI has been portrayed as the villain, as the evil, because the AI is taking humans' job. But the problem is the corporation is actually taking jobs, and they are not actually well regulated as they should be. But the robots are seen as the bad guy, as the villain that wants to conquer the world. A projection of humanity, if you will. And then there is this idea of this subjugation, and this subjugation can be read by Foucault's idea of violence. The Foucault's idea of violence. Foucault what says that power can only exist in positions where the opposition can either, like the victim can either kill himself, or actually to defy that order, or to actually kill that person who is giving the order. But in this case, in Asimov's third law, we will see that robot must protect his existence unless it's for human good. So this says that even the notion of death has been taken away from the robots, and therefore it can also be it can also be portrayed as a form of the Foucauldian sense of anatomopolitics. The biopower. The biopower is that the power over the human bodies to actually make them much more docile, much more useful. And so what happens is that the idea of the biopower is being exalted here, that the idea of death, which is very much natural, is again being controlled by the powerful people. Okay, with this I conclude my paper.
Thank you, Ayon. Our next presenter is Debashish Shao.
Thank you very much. I've been listening to all the keynote speakers, and especially Asijit sir. I've been following him for a long time. My paper is it's I think an amalgamation of what I have heard throughout the day. I mean, there is a talk about interconnectedness, and I think I have a connection to all the papers that was presented earlier, especially with Joyjit Ghosh, the HOD of Department of English of Midnapore University. The title of my paper is Tracing Eco-Sexuality Through the Veins of Literature, from Hardy and Lawrence to Contemporary Voices. Now, there is a kind of talking about third space, and there is no reconciliation between human beings and non-human beings. There is talk about robots, and we are unable to find a space where both can exist together. The coexistence that we are talking about. We are talking about development schemes, and we are talking about a kind of reciprocal relationship between the development and the protection of nature and other consciousness about ecology. I think eco-sexuality can give a kind of answer to those questions. I'm going to just read some excerpts of my paper because it's a limited time. Eco-sexuality, as conceptualized within the realms of both environmental activism and sexual identity, represents a merging of ecological awareness with sexual expression and intimacy. The term itself is presented by Beth Stephens and Annie Sprinkle, where they say that we must not see Earth as a mother, but as a lover. Now that question, the question of mother and lover is very important. Now mother is someone who actually gives everything and never expect anything in receipt. She never propels us or never asks us for her effort in our family or in anything. But lover, for lover or any beloved or a kind of a relationship which is not always a giver. There is always a connection. There is a story what and Sprinkle and Stephen is talking about. In ecosexuality, we consider the interconnectedness of sexuality with ecology and ecology with sexuality. That's why they have already stated that this term can also be told as sex ecology. Now here I can quote one quotation from them. They say in their ecofeminist or ecosexual manifesto that we are aquaphiles. We are not lovers. We make love to the earth. We are aquaphiles, we are terraphiles, we are pyrophiles, we are aerophiles. We make love with the earth through our senses. What Joyjit sir was talking about while talking about the poems in the fruits in the book Birds, Beasts and Flowers, we have to accept those elements of nature as lovers. We have to make them kind of a sense. We must make some sensual and sexual connection to them to understand them. Now the problem is that when I'm talking about ecosexuality, I think there are many writers who have talked about nature in their poems, from Wordsworth to Keats to everyone. But I think D.H. Lawrence and Thomas Hardy and Walt Whitman and contemporary Robinson Jeffers have talked about ecosexuality in general. For example, if I talk about D.H. Lawrence, he has given a concept called blood consciousness in his writings. This is a term which talks about a kind of deeper connection and almost primal connection between ecology and human beings. It's a kind of sense of unity. In Lawrence's perspective, the blood consciousness enables a person to experience a profound and intimate bond with nature, where the distinction between the self and the world blurs, and where the distinction between a deep-seatedness and belonging and unity with nature. It's a concept that moves beyond the intellectual engagement with the nature, advocating a most erotic relationship with the nature. For Lawrence, experiencing natural world through blood consciousness is akin to engaging in a deeply personal and transformative relationship. D.H. Lawrence's expression of ecosexuality, particularly through the concept of blood consciousness, offers a deep intrinsic connection between human beings and the natural world. This can be seen in the Bread Levi chapter of Women in Love by D.H. Lawrence, where Barkin retreats to the wilderness, shedding his clothing and societal constraints. There is a scene where Barkin is actually very much annoyed with the society and goes to forest, and he becomes naked with the nature. And he there want to feel the nature with a kind of sexual and erotic touch. And again, if I go to Walt Whitman, Walt Whitman's Leaves of Grass is seminal work, where he exemplifies the profound integration of nature and the vision of the body's unity with nature. I celebrate myself, I quote Walt Whitman, I celebrate myself and sing myself, and what I assume, you shall assume, for every atom belonging to me as good as belongs to you. This is what interconnected means. Ecosexuality is that concept which can blur this distinction between humans and non-humans. Again, if I go to Robinson Jeffers, he has written a poem called Carmel Point, where he has given a concept called inhumanism. Now, this concept is very, very interesting to understand ecosexuality. This philosophy is deeply embedded in his poetry, which resonates with the elements of ecosexuality by emphasizing profound connection with natural environment, which we think is very detached to us. This viewpoint is very, very important to understand ecosexuality. Here, in this poem, I quote one line. He is trying to decenter the position of humans, the anthropocentric, the position of humans as supreme leader of this earth has been decentered. For example, he says in one line, we must uncenter our minds from ourselves.
We must unhumanize our views a little and become confident as the rock and ocean that we are made from. We are made from what? Sir, actually I was talking about is stardust. We are not created by, we have not created us. We are created by some otherworldly, inhuman or non-human components. So these small things can be talked about ecosexuality. It's a limited time I have to end with a kind of optimistic approach here. I think what Anna Sprinkle and Stephen is trying to say, that we must create kind of an environment for our future generation where we can actually live with the nature in a more integrated and reciprocal way. For that matter, ecosexuality, the concept of ecosexuality, which is given by Lawrence many years back, I think is very important for us to understand. Thank you.
Thank you, Devashish, for that wonderful presentation. Our next speaker is Indrajit Ghosh.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'll try to keep it short and simple. Today, I would like to explore the fascinating realm of eco-criticism through the lens of Nitin Sekhar's novel, What's Left of the Jungle. Before I dive into the theories, I would like to introduce Nitin Sekhar. Nitin Sekhar is a scientist who works in the field of animal studies and conservation, and also an author who writes about it. To begin, let's set the stage by understanding what eco-criticism is all about. Eco-criticism, simply put, is the study of literature from the environmental perspective. It examines how nature is portrayed in literary works and explores the relationship between human and the natural world. Our world is facing an unprecedented ecological crisis. Pollution, deforestation, and the loss of biodiversity are just a few issues we are grappling with. It's evident that humanity's actions are driving ecocide, threatening the very ecosystems that sustain life on Earth. In the face of such daunting challenges, we must ask ourselves, what role does theory play in addressing these problems? Can these esoteric theories like eco-criticism or ecofeminism are capable of providing practical solutions for the problem we face? Enters Nitin Sekhar's novel, What's Left of the Jungle. This thought-provoking work provides a rich tapestry of human perspectives on nature and animals, offering valuable insights with our relationship with the natural world. One of the key themes explored in the novel is the concept of coexistence with the wildlife. Some characters in the story live in harmony with the nature, respecting the ecosystem and embracing the interconnectedness with all human beings. However, not all the characters share this perspective. Some assert their superiority over the nature, attempting to control and exploit it for their own personal gain. This attitude reflects a dangerous mindset and views the natural world as nothing more than a resource to be exploited. On the other hand of the spectrum, we have characters who are completely detached from the nature, prioritizing their own welfare above everything else. This selfish mindset not only disregards the well-being of environment, but also overlooks the intricate web of life that sustains us all. So within the novel, we encounter three distinct perspectives through which humans view nature. Firstly, they are the friends, the ones who coexist harmoniously with the nature. Secondly, they are the exploiters, such as hunters and poachers, who seek to profit from the nature's resources. And lastly, there are the detached ones, represented by the city dwellers, who have little to no connection or interaction with the nature. Drawing from eco-critical viewpoints, we can see how the novel underscores the interconnectedness between human life and the natural world. It highlights the importance of preserving biodiversity and advocating for a re-evaluation of humanity's relationship with the environment. This research contributes to the ongoing discourse of eco-criticism, emphasizing its significance in literary theory and cultural studies. By examining literature through an environmental lens, we gain a deeper understanding of our place in the natural world and the urgent need for sustainable development. In conclusion, What's Left of the Jungle offers a compelling exploration of human relationship with wildlife, prompting us to reflect our own attitudes towards nature. As we navigate through the complexities of the ecological crisis, eco-criticism serves as a valuable tool for fostering awareness, empathy, and action. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Indrajit, for that succinct presentation. Our next speaker is Kuheli Patro.
Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I would like to express my special thanks to the Department of Humanities English in Midnapore City College. Myself, Kuheli Patro, a student of PG 2nd SEM, Department of Humanities English in Midnapore City College. I am going to present my paper entitled Nature's Beauty Incarnated, an Eco-Critical Approach to Mary Wortham Howitt's poem, The Hummingbird. So first of all, we have to know about the eco-criticism. Eco-criticism is one of the youngest revisionist movements, an interesting study that decorates the terribly beautiful relationship between man and environment in literature. It is an interdisciplinary study of the connection between literature and environment. So, it considers the theory and practical of ecological literary criticism. Eco-criticism contains a strong existence upon the romantic writings or the romanticism. Now we can say it is become a way to express the beauty of nature through the love or the existence of love through the natural elements. To the romantic poets such as Samuel Taylor Coleridge, John Keats, William Blake, P.B. Shelley, etc. To the romantics, nature is not only a common creation, but by their imagination world, they decorate the natural elements through the beautiful metaphors and personification. The use of supernaturalism can give a reader a different feeling through the literature. Now we can give the example of the poet by Samuel Taylor Coleridge, The Christabel. It is an example of a poem based on the supernaturalism. Even the poet Samuel Taylor Coleridge referred the nature as the language of God. We can give an example through a beautiful poem, Ode to a Nightingale, by John Keats. In this poem, the bird nightingale has a magical power in its voice. Though it is a bird to us, but in this poem it represented as a symbol of nature and death by the poet and a singer of sad songs only. Bird is a very beautiful and small creation of nature. It plays an important role to control the ecosystem. Though it is a very small creation of nature, but it can pollinating the flowers, controlling the pests, fertilize the seeds, and also being a source of food itself. Here I have selected this poem, The Hummingbird, the Mary Howitt, to illustrate it through the eco-criticism. Here the poet describes a tiny bird, the very tiny bird, as a very beautiful creation of nature. She describes every movement of the hummingbird among the natural elements like fairy, in the island, on the river bank, in her cottony nest, wild trees, growing fragrant spices, sunny flowers with shining body and wings like a peacock's neck. Here the poet portrays the natural elements by metaphors. She tries to create an unending relationship of nature with the hummingbird. Literature is the mirror of the society. It can reflect everything which has an existence in our universe. So, here by the poem Hummingbird, we can get an existence of eco-criticism in our literature. So, eco-criticism is, here we can say that it is an interdisciplinary study to the connection between literature and the environment. Here we can get the example of the tiny bird, the one and only tiny bird in our universe, hummingbird. Hummingbird, though it is a very tiny creature of our nature, but it is very beautiful. It is very beautiful, like in the according to the poet, though it is a very small, but it is very beautiful. She describes it like a fairy in the island, in his cottony necks, wild trees, with shining body and wings like a peacock's neck. So here the poet tried to describe the relationship between the hummingbird and the nature. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kuheli. Our next speaker is Navadip.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Navadip Mondal, and today I am honored to stand before you to present my paper, Derek Walcott's poem, A Far Cry from Africa, from an eco-critical from an eco-critical and post-colonial perspective. Derek Walcott, a Nobel laureate in literature, was a Caribbean poet and playwright known for his exploration of themes such as identity, history, impact of colonialism, etc. Born in St. Lucia in 1930, Walcott's works often reflect his Caribbean heritage and the complexities of post-colonial existence. His unique blend of language, imagery, and complexities of post-colonial existence earned him international acclaim and positioned him as a prominent voice in the literary world. Now, focusing on Walcott's poem, A Far Cry from Africa, we enter into a world where eco-criticism or eco-critical perspective and colonial rule linked so closely. Through an eco-critical lens, we can explore how the poem reflects exploitation of nature by colonial powers and resulting eco-critical or ecological consequences. Walcott's vivid imagery of African landscape serves as a powerful reminder of the interconnectedness between human and nature. The poem opens with a striking image of the African plain, described as having a tawny pelt, evoking the color and texture of the landscape. This portrayal of Africa as an animal with a tawny coat immediately establishes a connection between land and the humans belonging there. And the mention of KQ tribe as quick as flies and the imagery of the blast teams and corpses scattered through this paradise further intensify the description of the land marred by violence and conflict. Additionally, Walcott's reference to a worm as the colonel of carrion symbolizes the unsympathetic colonial force, highlighting their lack of empathy and decay caused by their action. This imagery not only emphasizes the brutality of colonialism but also underscores the destructive impact of natural world. By Walcott, Walcott emphasizes the stark contrast between the harmony of nature and the discord of human conflict through this poem. Again, from the post-colonial standpoint, a far cry from Africa delves into the complexities of identity, belonging, and the legacy of colonialism. Walcott's exploration of the African diaspora and the struggle of cultural hybridity resonates the post-colonial theories, shedding light on the enduring effects of colonialism on individual and the societies. By examining the poem through a post-colonial lens, we can uncover the power dynamics, resistance, and the quest for autonomy in a post-colonial world. Walcott's exploration of the African diaspora is evident in his in these lines such as, I who am poisoned with blood of both, where shall I turn? Divided to the vein. This internal conflict reflects the psychological turmoil of individuals with the mixed heritage, torn between different culture, influences, and histories. The poet's engagement with the Mau rebellion in Kenya and the colonial colony underscores the enduring effect of colonization on the personal identity and social structure. Moreover, Walcott's portrayal of cultural hybridity in the Caribbean context sheds light on the complexities of the post-colonial identities. The intermixing of culture, language, and traditions in the Caribbean region as a result of colonization and slavery has led to a unique hybrid culture through poems like Names and The Sea is History. Walcott celebrates the cosmopolitanism of the Caribbean culture while critically examining its colonial past. In conclusion, Derek Walcott's A Far Cry from Africa offers a rich tapestry of themes that invites us to reflect on our relationship with nature, history, and each other. Through eco-critical and post-colonial analysis, we gain a deeper understanding of the poem's significance in the context of environmental ethics and post-colonial discourse. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Navadip. The next speaker is Shantanu Chaudhuri. Our final presentation is by Sriparna Mohapatra.
Hello, I would like to thank everyone for this opportunity, and we don't have enough time, so directly I come to the point. The name of my paper is The Influence of British Colonialism on Sukumar Roy's Nonsense Poem Abol Tabol. So I hope since childhood we have read the poem Abol Tabol. How many students have read this poem Abol Tabol? Okay, we all know that, the Abol Tabol. So Sukumar Roy's literature is known as Khyal Rosh, and we know that this eminent poet was born in Calcutta in the late 19th century, going through what is now referred as the Bengal Renaissance. So what is called nonsense in literature? Can it be called nonsense in conventional? So therefore, in Hojo Boro law and Abol Tabol, we see the tyranny of the foreign rulers and the greediness and the complacency born of ignorance through the eyes of Sukumar Roy. Most of the people in Bengal, as a fantasy of children's literature to enjoy humor and satire. While we started reading the Abol Tabol, we enjoy it. Are we enjoying now? Yeah. So behind this humor, he was trying to describe the autocracy and the hypocrisy running in the society. Sukumar Rai presented his Abol Tabol through different kind of humorous character, but actually they presented the epitome of the British colonizers. Now I would like to draw my attention on the poem Baburam Shapure. I would like to translate the poem in Bengali language to make you understand better. Baburam Shapure kotha jas bapure, আয় বাবা দেখে যা দুটো সাপ রেখে যা, যে সাপের চোখ নেই শিং নেই নখ নেই, ছোটে নাকি হাঁটে না কাউকে সে কাটে না, কারো নাকো ফোঁসফাঁস মারে নাকো ঢুস ঢাস, নেই কোনো উৎপাত খায় শুধু দুধ ভাত, সেই সাপ জ্যান্ত গোটা দুই আন্ত, তেরে মেরে ঠান্ডা করেতেই ঠান্ডা. So this poem was published in Sandesh newspaper in 1328, and the intensity of anger and sarcasm in the poem was probably direct. Previously, the name of the poem was Bapre, but later the name was changed, and that's why the poet wants to make himself more famous by changing his name. We all know that the snake has poison. So dealing with snakes and catching and poisonous snakes is a sign of power and bravery. But the snakes Baburam keeps in his booze is actually teethless and clawless. The snake doesn't move, doesn't breathe, doesn't sleep, and it doesn't even know how to breathe. So some people want to show their bravery by killing such kind of snakes. All the poems are filled with pun against such cowardice act. We all know that the non-cooperation movement started in 1920, led by Gandhi, Mahatma Gandhi. So Mahatma Gandhi chose the Non-Violence Act, and there was no risk in his act. On the other side, moderates choose the action. Those cowards get upset if they see any danger or resistance anywhere. So here we can see that and criticize a degree of skepticism regarding the pacifist approach led by Mahatma Gandhi. Because Gandhi believed in non-violence, so according to one of the Gandhi's biographers, it was his job to pick the fires of violence that were burning in the most of the country. The unprecedented depression of 1920 resulted in mass revolt of 1921. They were worried that the movement was taking a dangerous path. So they wanted the snake which has no claws, which has no teeth, even that doesn't breathe. They wanted the snake there was no danger, who eats only milks and rice. They wanted to cool by killing its snake with a stick. So Gandhi's leadership led the non-cooperation movement, and the fight was, we can say that it was completely orchestrated. And Shukma wanted to satirize through these lines. I have already recited. My next poem is The Billy Hawk Calf. The Bengali translation is Ram Gorure Chhana. So through this poem, the impressions of the era crisis of the First World War, it was happened to know that 1914, during the turbulent times, the people of the subjugated India forget to love because they were being dominated by the Britishers. And they forget to laugh at the British exploitations and oppression. So it was created in the pattern of not laughing Ramguru's stick, Ramgurure Chhana. So the Billy Hawk Calf is a creation of the poet and the serious fictional animal with a serious face. So as a result of World War, a group of self-interested people emerged in India who always wanted to serve their own interest. Actually, they have a smile on their face, but they have a poison in their mind. They can change their form according to the situations, and that's why those kind of people were being compared by Sukumar Roy Chaumalan. And now I'd like to just quote two lines. টিয়ামুখো গিরগিটি মনে ভারী শঙ্কা পোকা ছেড়ে শেষে কি গো খাবে কাঁচা লঙ্কা. So the questions prove that the charmeleon is always ready to change the color, and therefore under the pressure of the time, and some people also turned themselves into charmeleons. My last poem is, because we don't have enough time, Uncle's Contraption. The Bengali translation of the poem is Khuror Kol. Contraptions means machine. So the poem Uncle's Contraption reminds us the corporate sector of our present society, and the first paced society of the civilization. We can say that the commercialism that robs life of its sweet recess. I just quote 2 lines. বুদ্ধি জোরে সংসারে একটা কিছু হবে, সেই খুঁড়ো আজ কল করেছেন আপন বুদ্ধি বলে, 5 ঘন্টার রাস্তা যাবে 1.5 ঘন্টায় চলে, দেখে এলাম কলটি অতি সহজ এবং সোজা, ঘন্টা 5 হাঁটলে পরে আপনি যাবে বোঝা. So this process continues to capillarize our society. At the head of the faucet or tap, faucet means tap, there is a supply of tempting food. For the food we can get the food, or for the food we just keep walking, and it motivates the walk. So the commercial civilizations accounts people to luxurious life of the people, and then comes the stage of race by maintaining that life. Directly or indirectly, we are all in a rat race. We just rush to get the luxurious life. In this poem, he showed that how colonialism is intertwined with the exploitation of the natural resources. Contraptions means, I have already told, that machine. The contraption's ability to cover the distance may symbolize the efficiency with which the colonial's power exploited. Britishers take resources from our country and enrich their country. So here the contraption acted as a metaphor for the dehumanizing impact of rapid industrialization and the commercializations. Here I have told the contraption's ability. Yeah. The contraption ability to disrupt the quiet and the serene lifestyle. Sir Indranil sir has already covered my point that there is a rapid development, as represented by the mention of the grassy fields, alludes to the transformative and disruptive nature of the colonial rule. So now I would like to conclude my presentation. So here we see that nonsense technique. Nonsense means which has no sense. But Sukumar Roy presents the British Raj dominations and exploitations of our natural resources through this writing in very lucid manner. So here nonsense can be seen as an aid of sense making. So he has achieved a great success on his work by creating his nonsense verse. Thank you.
Thank you, Sriparna. Now the floor is open for questions or any of the presentations. The presenter should come to the stage if anyone has. Thank you so much. I'm concluding the session here. Thank you so much for the wonderful points.
Thank you, Subhendu sir. Thank you, participants. Now, our second session will be led by Professor Uttam Kumar Jena, and the presenters are Orpita Poti, Choitali Maiti, Ekta Kar, Kalyani Sasmal, Mala Jana, Priyanko Sarkar, Sobhan Dev Chakraborty, Sudhanshu Kanti Muria. Thank you. Sir, I would like to invite you on stage, please.
So in this session, the first paper presenter is Orpita Poti. Orpita Poti. Jabson. Choitali Maiti, next one.
Good afternoon, everyone. I want to delve into a critical environmental theory, ecofeminism. This theory explored the interconnectedness between the exploitation of nature and the oppression of women. My presentation will use Mamangdai's poem Small Town and River as a lens to analyze this connection, specifically the stanza, "The river has a soul. In the summer it cuts through the land like a torrent of grief sometimes. Sometimes I think it holds its breath, seeking a land of peace and stars." This stanza implies that the river has the capability of rebirth. So, through this stanza, Mamangdai tried to portray that river, here river is symbolically represent the role of women in our society. Through this, we can see throughout the history, both women and nature have been seen as things to be used and taken advantage of for the benefit of society. Women have often been expected to stay at home and take care of the family, while nature is seen only as a place to get resources without any real value. This way of thinking has caused a lot of damage to both the environment and the woman's right. When we use nature without thinking about the consequences, we end up hurting the planet, cutting down trees, polluting the air and water, and causing climate change. Are always we harm nature because we only care about what we can get from it. At the same time, when we treat women like they are less important than men, it leads to unfairness and inequality. Women don't always get the same chances as men to go to school, get good jobs, or make decisions about their own lives. Let's take a moment to imagine a Sharani small town nestled alongside a meandering river. In this picturesque setting, we can see parallels between the town and the river and the plight of women and nature. Just as the town depends on the river for sustenance and life, women are deeply intertwined with the natural world. Yet, both are often mistreated and exploited for the benefits of others. Now let's turn our attention to Mamangdai's evocative poem, Small Town and River. Through her words, Dai paints a vivid picture of resilience and beauty amidst adversity. In this poem, we see the town and the river as symbols of strength, even in the face of exploitation and neglect. It is a poignant reminder that when given the chance, both women and nature can thrive and flourish independently. In this regard, ecofeminism challenges this exploitative relationship. It argues that true environmental sustainability cannot be achieved without recognizing the connection between the well-being of women and the well-being of the planet. By empowering women and acknowledging their inherent connection to nature, we can move towards a more sustainable future. Mamangdai's poem, Small Town and River, serves as a powerful tool for understanding ecofeminist principle. The poem can depict the protagonist's childhood memories, where the river represented a source of solace and freedom. Just as the river in the poem symbolizes renewal and starting afresh, women also have the power to bring new life into the world. Just like people express gratitude to the river for its life-giving qualities, we should also appreciate and be thankful for the role of women in giving birth and nurturing life. This shrine of happy pictures stands in stark contrast to the anxieties of the present, possibly reflecting the destruction of nature and the marginalization of women. While the 21st century has seen increased awareness of environmental issues and women's rights, true liberation remains a distant dream. Ecofeminism offers a vital framework for moving forward. By recognizing the interconnectedness of women and nature, we can foster a future where both can flourish. This requires dismantling patriarchal structure, respecting women's connection to nature, and promoting sustainable practices. That's all. Thank you, everyone.
Next one is Ekta Kaur.
Good afternoon, everybody. I am Ekta Kaur. I am a student of Midnapore City College, and I am doing my post-graduation from here. Today I will be presenting a paper which is entitled Xenophobia and Coexistence, an Eco-Critical Post-Humanist Study of Interests of Political and Social Relation between Mankind and the otherized species, that is Homo novus, in Dmitry Glukhovsky's Metro 2033. So basically the novel is all about a dystopian, is a science fiction novel. It is written by a Russian author, that is Dmitry Glukhovsky. It's a society of aftermath of a nuclear war set within the underground metro system of Moscow, and in which the survivor seeks refugees from the radioactive surface. But what happened that the upper surface is devastated by a global nuclear holocaust, and for the humans it is impossible to live in there. So the metro station are now the underground metro stations are now like city states alone, and each has its own culture and social satisfaction, and some stations are governed by the totalitarian regimes, such as for example fourth region, which leans toward fascism, or the red line communist for another are more dramatic and anarchist. So I'm gonna not talk about the story of that novel, but in this paper I have analyzed the actions of the humans towards the entities which are called that in the novel the author has called the dark ones. In the novel we can see that the humans who are living under the surface are engaged in different types of futile fightings with each other, and pointing their views on different philosophies and statements and other things. Interesting entities have been identified in this novel, that the dark ones and the people who in the novel people have called them the homo novus. Basically in the novel the people have called that homo novus, and the people in the novel are feared by these dark ones, and basically the fear has been like as I've told in the title, that is xenophobia. The xenophobia comes from the Greek language. Xenophobia comes from the Greek language. The word xeno, which means foreigner or stranger, or phobia comes from the word phobos, which means fierce. So this the fear, the replacement of the fear, the xenophobia has come, and they are like discriminating the dark ones and naming them ghouls and ghost like figures, and it's basically an example of a great replacement theory, or I can tell that great replacement is an conspiracy of flexible political strategy encompassing various explorative frameworks and elements which can be used strategically by far right actors in order to induce fear in native population by feeding social and economic insecurity by relying on the ideas of ethnic or cultural homogeneity. But through this great reason we can see that the humans in the surface area are feared by the dark ones, and they are feared that they will be replaced by these dark ones, and the dark ones are post-dualistic post-humanistic creature. They are in the novel the homo novus are who like humans and much more like other animals who does not pretend to have any rhyme or harm to nature. Unlike humans, they are aware that they are part of natural harmony. Humans did not treat this intelligent species as humans, and rather than they see them as a subhuman entities who are being hated due to their anthropocentric views. But dark ones can be read and analyzed as a post-human species due to their post-dualistic ideologies and not following anthropocentric notions like humans. So in this paper I have focused on the entity of homo novus, who are a figure of post-humanic creatures, and they are the next step of evolutionary step in this nature, and in the fact that nature and that humans have to understand that that nature is very big. They don't have to fear about that they will be replaced or whatever. That nature is a very it's a very big space, big enough for them for coexist, and coexistence is mainly the solution for them, and they have to learn the art of coexisting and from the nature, and have to break the man-made binaries and imaginaries and hierarchies and showcase that nature is a post-dualistic spectrum. Thank you.
Next one is Kollani Sasmal.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kollani Sasmal. I am a postgraduate student of Department of English, Diamond Harbour Women's University. My topic is Transition of Eco-Spirituality in Chinua Achebe's Things Fall Apart, looking through the lens of post-colonial eco-criticism. From the dawn of civilization, human beings are dependent over nature. Nature became the ultimate source for their living. People start to care for nature with the progress of mankind. Achebe's magnum opus novel Things Fall Apart is an ideal text where the native cultural practices are mostly embedded in nature. The title of the novel has been derived from W.P. Yeats's poem The Second Coming. In this novel, Achebe talks about several practices of Igbo society, Igbo cultural practices. Achebe himself belongs to Igbo culture. Igbo cultural practices before colonialism and after colonialism is quietly different. It has an impact over the people, the indigenous people who are so much inclined to the nature, but after colonialism this inclined with the nature has been devastated. This destruction of agrarian economy due to the colonial invention. Igbo culture was basically based on agrarian economy. Yam was their mostly celebrated crop. Religious clash between natives and colonizers. Igbo culture believes in polytheistic religion, where they believes nature and natural elements, several elements of nature as the emblem of god and goddesses, such as Annie, who is the goddess of earth, and they have a god of crop, the oracle of the hills and the caves. But after colonial masters came to the Igbo land, they are bound to accept Christianity instead of their polytheistic religion. Eco-spiritual connection is loosened, post-colonial ethnic cultural revival. Eco-spirituality suggests a manifestation of spiritual connection between human beings and the environment. As I mentioned before that Igbo people believed several elements of nature as divine. All human and non-human lives are embedded in nature. Literature has developed with one of the oldest binaries, nature versus culture, where nature is related with women and culture is associated with men. In this society, women are considered as in relation with nature, and they are treated as a mother, protector to their children, and also celebrated as goddesses, but at the same time they are treated as sex objects and also the childbearing machine. Presence of nature in Things Fall Apart. Nature is considered as divine, as I mentioned before. Mention of big silk cotton tree, which is sacred. Spirit of good children lived in that tree, waiting to be born. On ordinary days, young women who desired children came to sit under its shade. There is a mention, the line I am quoting from the text, that in the village Ilo there is a big silk cotton tree, and this is considered as sacred. But there is also another mention of evil forces embedded in nature, where Achebe talks about evil forest, where twin babies
and the people with swelling limbs and people with disease like smallpox and leprosy, they are considered as abomination to earth goddess, so they are left to the evil forest. Representation of women. Women are represented both with respect and also disrespect. Women play the role of priestess and goddesses, educator to their children through storytelling, because Igbo's culture has so much folk tales that they are their mothers in the evening sit with their children and let their children learn about their folk tales and give them moral education. Neka, the common name for mother, which means mother is supreme. At the same time, women are treated as sex objects and childbearing machine. The birth of her children, which should be a woman's crowning glory, became for Equiface a mere physical agony devoid of promise. We see that in this novel, the protagonist Okonko has 3 wives, and the second wife, Ekwepi, has several childbirths, but the children are died because they are considered as Okbanji. So there is a cultural concept, but this is thought as the women who produced more children, they are celebrated high position in this Igbo society. And there is another mention of Obedika's daughter, as her in-laws came to her house for the final talk of their marriage, and they look after her body as she is about 16, as just ripe for marriage. Her suitor and his relatives surveyed her young body with expert eyes, as if to assure themselves that she was beautiful and ripe. That means that she is associated with fruit, or that is her body is a succulent body, and she is ripe enough or not, that her in-laws are judging through her body. And also we can consider her as a tree, that she is ready enough for giving a child or not. Post-colonial eco-criticism, as the time is not permitting, so I would like to precise that post-colonial eco-criticism is trying to resuscitate the native cultural practices which are embedded in nature rather than in material practices. Pre-colonial Igbo society. Before colonial intrusion in Umuofia, the clan has a great unity. Nature and natural elements are used for basic needs. We see in this novel that before colonial intrusion, everybody lived in harmony with nature, but after colonial invasion, the clan is divided into parts, and people are scattered, and they are divided into 2 groups, as Christian and non-Christian, and there is a clash between their own brothers. Transition in Igbo culture after colonial intrusion. The communal brotherhood is lost. The Okonko committed suicide at the final section of the novel, which shows that the collapse of Igbo culture. And to his death, Obedika, his friend, says that that man was one of the greatest men in Umuofia. You drove him to kill himself, and now he will be buried like a dog. That means he is degraded from the place of man to the animal, like a dog. Cultural mummification of indigenous practices. Imposition of colonizers' cultures over native culture. Christian people try to overpower the native culture, so they try to spread Christianity more.
English education in schools. They start English education where they try to give the name of Noe as Isaac, as if Noe is the name is not up to the mark, and Isaac is a highly educated, symbolizes a highly educated person. That means the native culture is wiped out and the colonial culture is embedded there. Thiongo, another African writer, says that the domination of a people's language by language of colonizing nations was crucial to the domination of mental universe of the colonized. Which shows the role of language is very important. Yes, sir. There is also the mention of establishment of church and the use of medicine instead of native ancient medicinal herbs, replacement of Igbubu judicial system by the court laws of the colonizers. Now I want to conclude that one of the Chinua Achebe's goals in writing Things Fall Apart was to correct a whole history of misrepresentations of his people and country in the Occidental discourse. Achebe presents some of brutal practices in the text, such as sacrifices of animals and the ritual killing of Ikemefuna. Instead of these things, Achebe wants to say that native people should revive their rich cultural heritage. Thank you.
The next one I would like to call on to the dais is Malajan.
Good afternoon, everyone. In my today's presentation, I would like to present a paper on nature and women on the ecofeminism point of view. And as we know, ecofeminism is an essential part of feminism. And on the context of ecofeminism, there are so many writers. Among of them, Mahasweta Devi is one. And my today's presentation, I would like to present ecofeminism with the reference from Draupadi by Mahasweta Devi. Devi's work often depicts the struggle of marginalized women against oppressive systems, mirroring the exploitation of nature. If we analyze the text Draupadi, the sexual exploitation can be related to the natural exploitation. As human exploit the nature, on the same way the colonizers also able to exploit Draupadi by sexually. So Mahasweta Devi's Draupadi intricately weaves the theme of nature and women into a complex narrative. Nature portrayed as both nursing and indifferent serves as backdrop to the struggle of women. Draupadi, a marginalized tribal woman, embodies the resilience of nature itself. She grapples with social injustice, mirroring the ecosystem's content battle for survival. Devi juxtaposes the exploitation of women with the exploitation of nature, emphasizing their interconnectedness. Draupadi's plight reflects the exploitation of both the feminine and the natural world. The author skillfully parallels the earth's exploitation with the exploitation of women, revealing the profound impact of human actions on both realms. In Draupadi, Mahasweta Devi advocates for environmental and gender justice, uprising reader to recognize the inspiration bond between nature and woman. Through Draupadi's journey, the complex us to reflect on our responsibility to protect and honor both the earth and its inhabits. At the patriarchal society, able to exploit the females on the same way, the human society also exploits the nature. And this is the main theme we had to say on the ecofeminism point of view, that connect nature and women together. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your succinct presentation. Next one that I would like to call to the dais is Ms. Priyanka Sarkar.
A very good afternoon, all of you. The title of my paper is Decoding the Nuances of Anthropocene in Indian English Literature. The Nobel Prize-winning atmospheric chemist Paul J. Crutzen defined this human-dominated contemporary time zone as the Anthropocene era. He elaborated the term Anthropocene as a situation where the Earth is now moving out of its current geological epoch known as the Holocene, where the human activity is solely responsible for this early tragic exit. And it is this humankind which has now become a geological force as its own right. The era of Anthropocene is witnessing drastic shift in climate change, which ultimately lead to species extinction and habitat destruction. The species, both human and non-human entities, are forced to migrate from one place to another for their survival due to extreme ecological catastrophe. The United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres, in a preface to the United Nations Climate Conference held on 2nd of December 2013, has stated that the world effort to stop climate change have been utterly inadequate and so far, and there is a danger that the global warming could pass at the point of no return. Further, he pointed out that the increase in temperature and drastic shift in weather patterns badly affect human and other species in an unprecedented manner. The Western literature in this contemporary age has wide range of genre and themes exclusively covering the range of Anthropocene or climate change literature, as for example, The Sixth Extinction, An Unnatural History by the Pulitzer-winning novelist Elizabeth Kolbetter, The Uninhabitable Earth, Life After Warming by David Wallace Wells, but little has been explored so far on the contribution of Indian English fiction or other literary genre in general towards Anthropocene. The aim of my article is to show how the Indian English narratives help to shape the idea of Anthropocene and what are the challenges that climate change brings on Indian English fictions. The advent of climate catastrophe is a serious challenge that should be skillfully negotiated through the writings of great Indian stalwarts like Amitabh Ghosh, Arun Joshi, Indra Sinha, and the graphic novelists like Sarnath Banerjee. This article tried to investigate the presence of apocalypse as a literary tool in the plot itself or as a part of the rhetoric and aesthetic of the text in Indian English literature, and questioning the extent of Western climate fiction influences on our native tradition and the possibility of Indian English literature becoming a serious alternative in terms of climate change representation. Amitabh Ghosh, in his fictions like The Hungry Tide, Gun Island, and non-fiction The Great Derangement, try to respond to the dilemma after contemporary climate crisis and species niche destruction. He, through his literary works, tries to intervene historical narratives with ecological concerns and emphasizing the impact of human activities on the environment. In literary circles, Amitabh Ghosh is widely known for his ability to merge storytelling with pressing contemporary issues, which include climate change. The impact of climate change on human is non-negotiable in nature. With this alarming rise in temperature, there is a potential chance for heat-related illness, which focused people to migrate in low volatile temperature zone. Secondly, shift in weather patterns can vehemently disrupt agricultural productivity that lead to crop failures, food shortage, and increase in food prices. This affects the livelihood of millions of people, especially in vulnerable regions. Thirdly, changes in precipitation patterns and glacier melting resulted in water scarcity and need for good hygiene and water availability. The root cause of climate change resulted in induced displacement both in internal and external border area. These exacerbate in political and social tensions which resulted in conflicts over natural resources. One of the eminent subaltern historians, Dipesh Chakraborty, has opined that global warming and globalization began at the same time in the 90s, with globalization receiving immediate attention. The various academicians, literary critics, international politicians, and diplomats have neglected the slow pace of global warming or the slow poison which global warming brings to our Earth's surface. But these situations slowly started to change during 2000 AD when people started experiencing the heat and warming in actual sense. Besides that, the indication of the climate crisis is already visible with wildfires, cyclones, melting of ice caps, and the rise in the sea level. Thus, there came a stage where the necessity to revise the existing theories, language, politics, economic policies, and literature comes into play. Dipesh Chakraborty has elaborated that as the crisis for global warming gathered momentum in the last few years, it had not really prepared him for making sense of this planetary conjecture within humanity, which humanity finds itself today. Thus, the modern man exploitation of natural resources has severely affected the ecosystem by taking a toll on and its non-human counterpart. Much of this happened because of the sudden rise in developmental project, which is designed by the capitalist economy and initiated by European colonizers. So, in that 20th century, many native writers tried to bring this new aspect of climate change fictions in their literary writings, which illuminate the toxicity and suffering people went through because of environmental hazard caused due to climate changes. Now, moving back to the discussion about the impact Amitav Ghosh's writings brings to the issue of climate change and climate catastrophe. Amitav Ghosh is largely concerned about the denial of climate crisis all over the globe. According to him, the crisis of climate is nothing but the crisis of culture itself. Being a post-colonial thinker, Amitav Ghosh engaged with the current climate catastrophe of the global south and seek how it altered the lives of human and non-humans residing at that particular geographical time zone. Beginning with the novel The Hungry Tide, Amitav Ghosh expounded his concern over the environment in the non-fiction, The Great Derangement, and later in the climate fiction of the time, Gun Island. Actually, Amitav Ghosh was addressing the era of Anthropocene in his non-fiction, The Great Derangement, and problematized the prevailing domain of literature, history, and politics with the intensity of his conviction about the non-human agencies. Another contemporary Indian novelist, Arun Joshi, whose novel The City and the River breaks away from the realist approach of his earlier fiction for formal experimentation as a political allegory of the emergency period to a critical sensing of ecological lenses. Recounting through the narration of the great Yogeswara, his unnamed disciple, the novel elaborates the tale of an unnamed city ruled by the Grandmaster, whose arrogant vision of greatness and development for the city is resisted by the boatmen who are not ready to shift their allegiance to Yogeswara from the river, whose children they consider among themselves. This resulted in Grandmaster taking oppressive measure against the boatmen through physical and political control. Thus, the depiction of state-sponsored operation as represented by the Grandmaster against characters like boatmen directly connected to nature through their names and accents, which ultimately extend this symbolic dimension of the narrative. Thus, to conclude my article, the intersection of climate change and Indian English fiction offer a nuanced understanding of environmental issues within the cultural and socio-political context of India. The contemporary Indian fictional writers, through their narratives, approaches tries to highlight the impact of climate change on communities, ecosystem, and identities, which foster a deep empathy and nature awareness. Through diverse narratives, they explore themes of adaptation, reliances, and the interconnectedness of human and environmental well-being. As the global climate crisis intensifies, the Indian English fiction writers serve as a powerful tool for sparking conservation, inspiring action, and envisioning sustainable futures. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next one is Savandev Chakrabarti.
I just really wanted to see whether silence speaks louder or not. Good afternoon, everybody. Lend me your ears for a few minutes only. Today my topic is From Margin to Center, an eco-critical study of James Courtge's Life and Times of Michael K., Disgrace and Lives of Animals. I have tried to look at these writings of this particular Nobel laureate, James Courtge of 2003, how he correlated through his writings nature, animals, and humans. He did not talk only about South Africa or the black-skinned people. Very intellectually, he escapes the burden of representation through his writings. When we talk about Life and Times of Michael K., Michael K. is deeply related with nature. I will concentrate in 2 to 3 ways. How nature is neglected by the white rulers or by the men in power. Second point, how animals are treated. And third point, I will come to this one, the idea of gardening, how it helps to continue with creativity. When we talk about Michael K., he was completely neglected, being hair-lipped, black-skinned. He was disturbed by the neon light. But also, he observes one thing very clearly on his way to Prince Albert, that how the gardens, the nature mother is neglected by the white-skinned rulers. And I would like to quote here something about this particular part, that how he observes that the garden is also neglected, the fruits are fallen, and nobody is there to take care of it. Michael K. always have a tendency to be away. And on his way to Prince Albert, I'm just quoting this one, an apple orchard overgrown with grass and weeds, worm-eaten fruits lay everywhere underfoot. He moved deeper into the orchard. Everywhere was evidence of neglect. This one point. Another point where Michael K. is very much observant, and the idea of gardening in his heart that is there, and how he loves the mother nature, how he saves the water, everything it is there. He becomes extremely happy because he is a gardener from the core of his heart. He watches the stream of water run down its channels to soak the earth. He sees how the earth turns it from fawn to deep brown. He also uses water wisely, carrying a deep message to the use of natural resources as much as necessary, and restore the rest. The same way we see in Disgrace also, Lucy also had an escape through the idea of gardening. She continues gardening, and thus it becomes a way of her escape. or rather I should say a kind of purgation, a way to purgation. Second point that I would like to stress here, the treatment of the animals, particularly in Life and Times of Michael K. We have seen in case of Disgrace as well how the dogs are put to death by Babe Shaw, and as well as it was supported later on by the father of Lucy, that is Lurie. And this was for the sake of giving them a respectable death. On the other hand, we also see in Life and Times of Michael K. how Michael K. kills different animals on his way. He kills turtle dove, he kills lizards, he kills in the Visagi farm a female sheep. And that is what I stresses here, a female sheep he killed over there, which is on the other way is representing a woman also, as well as the nature. So, in case of lives of animals also, we see there is always a talk through the character of Elizabeth Korji. She continues a kind of spiritual discussion regarding the killing of the animals. And there is a lot of talk. But I do remember here, I would like to quote here 2 to 3 lines only of what Barbara Smart said in Lives of Animals. She is of the opinion that treating members of other species as persons, as beings with potential far beyond our normal expectations, will bring out the best in them. Only because animals lack reason and cannot understand the universe doesn't mean that they should be treated thing-like. I'd like to conclude my speech with one of the quotes, and that concludes the book Life and Times of Michael K. He cherishes being a gardener, and he imagines at the end of the novel that he would produce a teaspoon from his pocket. He would lower it down the shaft deep into the earth, and when he brings it up, there would be water in the bowl of the spoon. He believes one can live that way, making himself being creative, innovative to the process of life. Thank you so much for your patient listening.
Thank you, Sovan, for your erudite presentation. So today's presentation, the session of this presentation comes to an end, and that also tells about the end of today's seminar. So from the morning, the time now has passed on from good morning to good evening towards. And students will be very happy that you will be decolonized after some time. And the whole day's erudite lectures that we listen from scholarly personalities is really enlightening. That gives us lots of space to think about and to make our own perspectives about nature, colonialism, and decolonization. But personally, I think that decolonization of the landscape of nature is not possible unless there is decolonization of the mindscape. So the mindscape should be changed for the change of the landscape. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. I trust you have gained valuable insights from our seminar. Thus far, now it's my pleasure to invite Dr. Rajkumar Bera to deliver the closing remarks and conclude our program with a valedictory speech.
Good afternoon, everyone. Ultimately, we have reached the last moment of our one-day national seminar. I am very much overwhelmed with the feeling and expectation that the rigorous discourse that has been well concretized by the different intellectuals as well as the different academicians on the particular concept, decolonization of nature, with different issues and different arguments. And ultimately, the whole discourse has enriched as well as filled up the cerebral fecundities of all the scholars, all the academicians, as well as the students also. At the end, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to all the resource persons such as Professor Shambhit Panigrahi from Ravenshaw University, Dr. Rosijit Datta from SRM University, Professor Indralil Acharya and Professor Joydit Ghosh from Vidyasagar University, and Dr. Uttam Kumar Jena from KD College of Commerce and General Studies, and of course, my friend also, Mr. Shubhendu Ghatak from the University of Florida, the great intellectual figure, because I have met already him in the earlier, in a particular seminar, webinar we have organized earlier. So now, at the same time, I would like to thank Honorable Director Sir Dr. Pradeep Ghosh, respected Principal Dr. Sudipta Chakraborty, respected Vice Principal Dr. Kuntal Ghosh for their constant encouragement and support. I would also like to thank Dr. Urpita Raj, Joint Convener and Assistant Professor of English, Midnapore City College, Mr. Abhishek Chakraborty, Organizing Secretary and Assistant Professor of English, Midnapore City College, for their constant assistance as well as cooperation. Because without their cooperation, it's not possible to fill up this particular seminar. Again, I would like to thank Professor Nirmal Kumar Sarkar, Emeritus Professor of Biological Science, Midnapore City College, respected Mr. Abhishek Das, Assistant Registrar, Midnapore City College, Dr. Uttam Kumar Jena, Associate Professor of English, KD College of Commerce and General Studies, Mr. Shubhendu Ghatak, PhD Scholar Instructor, University of Florida, USA, Dr. Olinda Sundar Poli, Assistant Professor of English, Munger University, Bihar, Dr. Shantanukar Mohapatra, Associate Professor, Midnapore City College, Dr. Shravani Pradhan, Assistant Professor, Midnapore City College, and my other colleagues from the Department of English as well as from the Department of Humanities. Mr. Ashish Kumar Barik, Assistant Librarian, Midnapore City College, Mr. Suman Mollik, IT Support Designer and Nodal Officer of Midnapore City College, and my other colleagues from the Administrative Office for their constant support and cooperation. Thank you. And one announcement I would like to announce to all the scholars, particularly who have sent their papers. The edited book was supposed to be published on this day, means today, but the entire process of this book is not completed yet. So we have already created a group, WhatsApp group, and we will constantly in contact with you with the gradual upgrade as well as the gradual update also. So I think within 15 and 20 days we'll publish it and we'll send it through speed post or any communicative process. Okay. Thank you. Thank you all again.